Welcome to this virtual business opportunities seminar with focus on education. Education Finland is organizing this event together with ADB headquarters, ADB European Representative Office, and together with Ministry for Foreign Affairs of Finland. We have a very good program ahead of us, and I would like now to give the floor to Ambassador of Education, Mariana Sall, to give the opening remarks, followed by Ambassador Juha Pyykkö. So Mariana, floor is yours.
Good morning from Helsinki. I'm very pleased to welcome you all to this event on business opportunities with the ADB on education sector. One of my key tasks as Ambassador for Education at the Ministry for Foreign Affairs is to share our education sector experience internationally, promote our expertise, and to build partnerships between public and private sectors. So this seminar with the ADB and Finnish private sector operators is all about enhancing that kind of cooperation. We are very keen on facilitating contacts between the ADB and the Finnish education sector actors. The aim of this seminar is hence to increase the knowledge of our education sector players on opportunities to partner with the bank, and for the bank to know more about our expertise in the field of education. The steep learning crisis needs diverse partnerships in order to find much needed solutions and expertise in support of education systems. Finland has a lot to offer. We have many kinds of expertise and solutions stemming from our commitment to quality education. In Finland, education has always been seen as the key to the nation's success in both human and economic terms. So we have established an entire ecosystem from teachers to research institutions, public and private sector actors collaborating. Many actors offer top quality pedagogical, system-wide and policy planning expertise and solutions also internationally, and are ready to engage in concrete projects. We also hear from our global partners that there is a demand for Finnish expertise and solutions. The Asian Development Bank is a valued partner for Finland. More than ever, the bank is a significant actor in supporting countries in the region to strengthen and reform educational systems. We are pleased that the ADB has increased its portfolio on education finance, and this is something we hope to see more in the future. Last time, Finland and the ADB organized a business opportunities seminar together around 2 years ago. And now, after the pandemic, I'm very happy to see us convening again. I want to highlight that there is a continued need for this kind of dialogue and partnerships. I'm confident that the Finnish education institutions and companies are eager to work with international partners such as the ADB to collaborate for new innovations in learning. And later on, we will hear from Helsinki and Turku universities about their experience on implementing an ADB-funded project. I trust that this seminar will create even more paths for cooperation between the ADB and Finnish private sector players. And the Foreign Ministry is committed to support this kind of collaboration. So with these words, I'm happy to open the seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mariana. And now I'm happy to welcome Ambassador Juha Pyykkö. Good afternoon. He is the ambassador for Finnish Embassy in Manila. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. You hear me still, I hope. You do. Magandang hapon, as we say here in the Philippines this afternoon, and magandang umaga, good morning to Finland and to Europe, to Frankfurt as well. And for my part, I want to welcome to this virtual business opportunities seminar focus on education organized by the Asian Development Bank, MFA of Finland and Education Finland. You know, from the embassy side, we've been pushing to organize a BOS with the bank since end last year, and that's why I'm really happy that now we are realizing this event and we are focusing on education which is hugely important, as we know, and especially now, and for many reasons. I'm not an expert in education, but as I see in terms of education, there is clearly a positive and attractive supply and demand situation between Finland and the Asian Development Bank. As Ambassador Sall pointed out already, as we all know, in Finland we have expertise in education policy and commercial applications. And on the other hand, as has been said, the whole world is going through an education crisis, not least here in Asia, and not least in the Philippines and in Manila, where the ADB is headquartered. And from that point of view, obviously, and as pointed out by Ambassador Sall already, it is very much welcome that the ADB is increasing its lending in and for education. I talk a lot about education here in the Philippines, and what I do is that I always, as we talk about narratives nowadays, narrative is the word, I combine the word education to the general story of Finland. Because as we know, and this is a good story here in Asia, in the regional context where the ADB is working, the story of the development of Finland is actually a story of education, and through education, increased gender equality and increased affluence. So it's a really positive development story where education is really the foundation. And that's why I feel that I'm proud to be telling that story here. And it's easy to tell that story because it is true. It is a true story. As said, this webinar is an opportunity for Finnish players to learn about the procedures and opportunities on the bank side in the field of education, and obviously for the bank staff and colleagues to learn about the expertise that we have in education. And as again, Ambassador in Helsinki underlined about facilitation, from the embassy side here, and my team here, we are ready to and eager to facilitate the increased involvement of Finnish education players in the ADB's project pipeline, and doing through, creating, for example, contacts and opening doors to the headquarters of the ADB now that we can finally meet people here face to face. So please don't be shy, get in touch with the Embassy of Finland here if and when you see a need to create and further develop create relations with the ADB here. So thank you again for having me here for opening remarks, and I hope that we have a successful and fruitful webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Pyykkä. And now I'm happy to invite the next speaker, Mr. Jeff Taylor, who is a Deputy Director General for Procurement Portfolio and Financial Management Department. Jeff's been working on the public procurement of infrastructure projects for 35 years, the last 15 years of which have been with ADB. In his time with ADB, he was the regional procurement head of Central West Asia, secretary to ADB's Operational Procurement Committee, head of ADB's Institutional Procurement, and chairperson of the Institutional Procurement Committee. We're more than happy to hear your introductory remarks. Jeff, floor is yours.
Thank you very much for those welcoming remarks, Junie. It makes me sound quite important. I can assure you I'm not very important, but hidden away in that, a much simpler one is I'm Chief Procurement Officer ADB. It's on line 57 of my job description. I would like to say hello to everybody, whether that's good morning or good afternoon, to all of our participants, and thank our host organisations for arranging this very important business seminar. And also extend my thanks to Ambassador Sall and Ambassador Pyykkä. Thank you very much for those interesting welcoming remarks and important ones. And I'm delighted to be here with you today. Also, I would like to just have a little shout out to Mikiko from our European Representative Office, who will be contributing throughout this session. For those of you that already know ADB, we did up until 2019 have a huge Manila-based event, and we're actually looking forward to that, sustainable procurement aside, which was attended by more than 1,000 people each year up until 2019. Obviously, during the pandemic, that was suspended, but we do look forward to having the in-person interaction that I think many of us do miss, and we hope to schedule something for next year. And I would welcome direct engagement from both ambassadors on any issue you have on procurement. So the door is always open, except my door is closed right now, so I don't get interrupted. Finland has always been important in ADB's portfolio and does punch above its weight. From 68 members, it has a share around about 48. But moving forward, and the purpose of this seminar is to see if that share can be increased in important areas. And one of the things that I'm particularly interested in from a procurement perspective is getting beyond pure price considerations and looking a lot more at the qualitative considerations in public procurement and in everything that ADB finances and does. And I think countries like Finland have a competitive advantage in those areas in terms of its technology and approach and philosophies. And I hope that participants here take some of that away and get enthused and encouraged about more engagement with ADB. And I don't say this to be nice. Machiko and Stefan will tell you I'm not very nice. I say this because ADB is wholly reliant on the implementation skills, capacity and knowledge of third parties. Everything we finance is implemented through third parties. The higher qualitative dimension we have from those third parties, the better we perform. So it's pure self-interest and not niceness is the reason that we do this. But you are the constituents in this virtual meeting are vital components and constituents in ADB's mission. I understand today that we have representatives from the consulting industry and other partners. And just to put the opportunities into perspective, ADB's open portfolio right now is $118 billion. Admittedly, a small but growing share is procurement, but a small share of $118 billion is still big, at approximately 5%. And Bradesh, I'm sure, will tell you that we aim on growing that to a bigger percentage share and therefore a bigger amount. So the opportunities are substantial. And ADB, for its part, does direct consulting procurement of around about $250 million a year, which is implemented by my department. So our direct spend on consultants is about 250. The portfolio is 118 billion. The share of the education sector is about 6 billion. So these are all big numbers, and I do encourage you to seek your share of those through the opportunities that ADB finance. Increasingly, we are seeing our borrowers getting more sophisticated, especially as they move to middle income status, but also because the world is changing and becoming more demanding. It makes my job very interesting, and I enjoy it. But we're seeing increasing sophistication and increasing qualitative requirements coming through in the portfolio. And I believe there are constituents in this room that are well placed to meet some of those challenges and deliver on them. So I'm very happy to be doing this, again, for my own self-interest. But I would encourage you to really monitor and use the tools that are going to be provided and highlighted to better understand ADB's portfolio. ADB is actually very good at pushing information out there to potential participants, but the sheer volume of information requires a certain level of expertise. You know, to use an old expression, you're going to get dirty when you're panning for gold, but there is gold in there. And there will be a lot of things that I think of potential interest if you know how to find them. So in large part, the rest of today's session will help you navigate your way around what ADB is publishing and what is putting out there, seeking opportunities of relevance and so forth. So I do encourage you to really go and research ADB. Many years ago, 25 or 30, I used to be in charge of tracking MDBs. activities. And I do know that it takes a certain level of expertise to find the information that you're looking for. And once you get there, it becomes much easier. So I hope today will help you significantly in that quest. On education, I'm delighted to have our education chief, Brajesh Pranth, who's going to be able to give you a lot more detail about the scope, the nature, and the drivers behind our engagement in the education sector. And please use us, ask questions, and get the maximum you can out of your time spent with us. So I will conclude there and not take up any more of your time. I think I've taken too much with my thanks again to the two ambassadors and all of the participants for joining us. Thank you very much, and I hope you find this useful.
Thank you, Jeff. We know that the future challenges are huge, but we also heard that the opportunities are substantial. Now I'm happy to invite two more speakers to introduce more about IDB's business opportunities, especially the project pipelines, ongoing and upcoming business opportunities within ADB's regional offices. I'm delighted to see Michiko Suga again. She's the Deputy Representative of the European Representative Office of ADB in Frankfurt. She has been actively working with Education Finland, and she maintains relationships with key stakeholders across ADB's 17 European member countries, including knowledge sharing initiatives, outreach activities, and external relations. Mrs. Suga has over 17 years of experience in project implementation, monitoring and evaluation, and project development and design, with a successful track record on securing funding, budget and grant management, external engagement, and strategic planning. So let's see what's on the pipeline. Michiko, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joni, for those kind introductory remarks. Good morning, everyone. And Andre, maybe you could pull up my slide deck. Good. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Ambassador Sall and Ambassador Picker, for your encouraging opening words. And it is nice to see you again, Ambassador Picker. On behalf of the ADB European Representative Office in Frankfurt, I echo Mr. Taylor's opening remarks and also would like to warmly welcome you to today's Business Opportunity Seminar, and I'm very much excited to be part of it. I'm also delighted to share with you that we have had a very long-standing cooperation with Finland's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Education Finland. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs early on identified the great work that is done in ADB's education sector and the possible synergies with the many expertise that is available in the sector in Finland. And they had the vision to establish a close partnership between Education Finland and ADB, which we have summarized in a strategic paper called Country Engagement Plan early on last year, and which has been our guiding document in our cooperation. And I will go into that a little bit later. But before I do so, let me briefly introduce you to ADB's European Representative Office and share with you the activities we've had with Finland, as well as the future services we could provide you with. The ADB itself was established in 1966 and the Frankfurt office in 1996. ADB, as Mr. Taylor has said earlier, has 68 member states, out of which Finland is one. In Frankfurt, we are focusing on working with the 17 European member states. Our main function is to work with our counterparts in each of the 17 member states in order to focus together on commonly agreed areas in the Asia and Pacific region. In this process, we together identify actors that could be mutually beneficial partners to Europe and Asia. This includes actors such as different national and local government agencies, think tanks, the private sector such as you, universities, the media, civil society, and so on. Through dialogue and networking, we collectively identify areas of common interests and goals and link these with those of ADB and Asia. And in the case of Finland, it has been the education sector. Next slide, please. Concretely, how we have how we have worked with Finland in the last 2 years was through a country engagement plan, which is a strategic document delineating what areas Finland and ADB would like to focus on. So this strategic plan maps out common interests. In this case, in the case of Finland, it was education, and matches Finland's education expertise into the Asian context. Specifically, the purpose of this plan is to outline the areas Finland would like ADB to focus on, and as well increase the awareness of ADB among the Finnish business community and promote the involvement of Finnish-based companies in ADB operations, in this case with a particular focus on education. Under the guidance of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we developed this plan directly with Education Finland to devise targeted activities that fit within your interests and needs in Asia. In the next slide, please. In the last 2 years and within the parameters of the country engagement plan, we held virtual coffees and webinars organized together with Education Finland. The purpose was to introduce the Finnish education tech sector to ADB opportunities. And I believe that some of the representatives today in this business seminar were already part of the virtual coffees and the other webinars. In this context, I also would like to highlight that there are very innovative opportunities offered by ADB, such as hackathons, and which are great entry opportunities for you to work with ADB. And I'll explain this a little bit later too by using an example directly from Finland. ADB's goal and European Representative Office's goal was and remains to link Finnish education expertise with ADB and vice versa. And most importantly, to find and create mutually beneficial education outcomes in the Asia and Pacific region. For example, in one of the events early on this year, we had the opportunity to hear from Mr. Kimmo Koivisto. He's the CEO of a startup tech called DigiZen, which provides digital identification to people who don't have any identification. DigiZen has worked in Papua New Guinea under an ADB finance project. And just as a side note, DigiZen took part in an ADB hackathon, which they won, and which then led to the project in Papua New Guinea. Aside from this story being super interesting of how they got involved with ADB, their story can also encourage you to be interested in the Asian education sector and the opportunities it has to offer. You can learn from DigiZen's story that there are innovative ways to enter this market. In this context, I hope that many of the Finnish companies that are attending today's business seminar will find impetus and encouragement to seek opportunities with ADB. At this point, all our events were virtual because of the pandemic, but we hope to be able to hold these types of events in person in the future. The events were directly targeted at Finnish education service providers in order for companies that might not necessarily have envisioned to engage in Asia to be encouraged to do so. And we wanted to show some useful tools as well as introduce a wider network within ADB to you. Here you see some of the events that I've just mentioned on the slide. We've also a video, next slide please. We also have a video of Jukka Tulivuori, who is an education specialist at ADB and who many of you already know. In this video, Jukka speaks about the ADB education sector in general and how he came to join ADB. The recordings of these events are all available publicly, and I encourage you to have a look at them as they give you some innovative ideas on how to get involved in ADB projects, no matter how big or small your company is. I'm now very excited to give the floor back to Yoni as well as to Mr. Brajesh Pant. As Mr. Taylor introduced, he's the ADB Chief of Education Sector Group, who will give you an overview of ADB's work in the education sector, which will help you visualize and identify possible opportunities. Thank you. Back to you, Yoni.
Thank you, Michiko.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michiko, for that. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. It is a pleasure to join this important webinar. Next slide, please. We are getting out from the most unprecedented disruptions from the pandemic while we are gradually returning to a new normal, there is a lot to rethink on how to turn the crisis into an opportunity. Obviously, more and better investment in human capital development is clearly a major priority of most governments. This includes learning recovery, skills development, and reimagining and rethinking education to ensure much greater impact on income, inclusive growth, and innovation. Next slide, please. In terms of key challenges, we would like to highlight two interrelated ones. First, one relates to improving learning for all to address the learning crisis, and this requires packaging some key elements like teacher quality, simplified curriculum, continuous formative assessment to improve teaching and learning practices. The second one relates to skills mismatches, which requires providing practical skills, including digital and soft skills, as well as higher level skills as countries in the region move up the value chain. Next slide, please. If we look at the education portfolio, we can see that the sector is gradually expanding, as Jeff mentioned earlier, but it is still below the corporate target of up to 10% of total ADB lending annually. So currently, as Jeff mentioned, is 5% or about 1 billion of lending per year, and we're trying to expand this to 2 billion per year. In terms of share of lending across the regions, South Asia region dominates, followed by Southeast Asia and Central and West Asia. While the share of the Pacific region may be small, the relative impact of ADB's support may be higher. The overall spike in demand for health and social protection during the pandemic adversely affected the demand for education, but the huge accumulated learning and earning losses due to the pandemic clearly shows the urgent need to address this as part of the second set of response. Next slide, please. Let me highlight the rapidly growing demand for higher education in the region. This is not surprising since most of the countries are lower middle income countries and are trying to move up the value chain. This will require them to expand the higher level skills. Given that more students are completing secondary education and moving to tertiary education, this will be a trend in the coming years. One opportunity that this expansion provides is to ensure the synergy between higher education and school education and between higher education and knowledge partnerships and innovation needed to provide skilled workforce for sustainable economic growth. Next slide, please. From a practical perspective, there are three clusters of business opportunities. The first is during the design phase, which requires diagnostic studies, cost estimates, economic analysis, environmental and social safeguards, and climate change mitigation. The second one is during the implementation phase, but this is largely managed by our developing member countries, DMCs, for improving quality of teaching and learning, teacher quality, curriculum development, institutional strengthening. And the third one relates to monitoring and evaluation in different forms, such as fiduciary reviews, independent verifications for results-based programs, conducting tracer studies, impact assessment, and evaluation studies. Next slide, please. In line with ADB's strategy 2030, DMCs are looking for funding as well as knowledge solutions. Again, as Jeff mentioned, our clients are becoming increasingly sophisticated. This means the typical traditional approach alone will not work. There is also a need to rethink how to optimize knowledge, partnerships, and innovation. This may involve identifying innovative approaches like digital learning and technology-based solutions to scale quality and equity, sharing global best practices regarding more impactful delivery models, and other new developments in this area. And Finland has a lot of experience in this. Next slide, please. ADB's focus on knowledge solution is increasingly more important for ADB to evolve as a solutions bank. For instance, some of the key challenges require innovative solutions and partnerships. How to ensure that all students are learning and acquiring foundational skills. How to get real-time labor market information to inform better design of TVET and higher education programs. How to address climate change and digital transformation, two major priorities of ADB and most DMCs. A related priority for strategy 2030 is to promote multi-sectoral approaches in promoting human capital development through whole of government approach. And education is not just about education, but helping all sectors to optimize their human capital base. For instance, urban centers are magnets of growth. How can they evolve as learning and innovation hubs? Next slide, please. Let me now turn to some of the key focus areas within different subsectors of education. In school education, early childhood development and early childhood education is seen as a foundation to enable everyone to succeed. STEM or STEAM education is seen as a way not only to make education more inquiry and project-based, but also recognize the labor market needs for STEM-related jobs, which can also provide non-traditional opportunities for women. The new generation digital learning, adaptive learning, and EdTech solutions appear to be very promising that can integrate teaching and learning with assessment to allow teachers to become more impactful. In TVET and higher education, climate change, digital transformation, as well as workforce development for health, education, and other sectors are in high demand, but the readiness of BMCs is at a lower level. Next slide, please. Therefore, we find it increasingly more important to blend knowledge with operations through multi-sectoral approaches for greater impact on quality jobs, fighting climate change, promoting smart cities, and supporting high-tech agriculture as part of food security, etc. At the same time, we also recognize the need to address remaining poverty and reduce inequalities through enhancing human capital development. The post-COVID period is critical to draw on lessons learned to rethink and reimagine education and skills development. Next slide, please. Going back to what I indicated earlier, we are also looking for new ways of improving delivery of knowledge and operations support. For instance, we are exploring establishing a university network that can facilitate advanced universities to support developing universities in developing member countries, DMCs, in the areas of climate change, digital transformation, health and education workforce, etc. This could include institutional twinning, exchange of faculty, collaborative research, transfer of knowledge and technology in priority areas such as teacher professional development, university industry linkages, STEM education, and so on. Next slide, please. Finland is well known for its world-class education system, which has promising implications in promoting innovation and good practices in areas such as teacher professional development, developing and implementing integrated curriculum, promoting continuous formative assessment, and STEAM education. There are also other important areas like inclusive education, as mentioned earlier, digital learning and EdTech solutions, as well as integrating and mainstreaming climate education at all levels of education. So these are the main parts of my presentations. The next few slides provide a list of pipeline projects, and you can go to other slides. This provides you a good flavor on the range of projects we support in different DMCs. This includes all levels of education. This also indicates the direction of projects. For instance, there are several STEM projects. There are many projects focused on technology and innovation, and there are also specialized projects looking at specific sectors or areas. We can have further clarifications during our open discussion. So I'll stop here and back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brajesh Pant. This gave us a very good insight on very concrete projects that are on the pipeline, and we hope that all of the participants who have been following this have already listed some of the questions that we can ask also later. Now I'm happy to give the floor to Mr. Taisuke Miao, a senior procurement specialist in procurement, financing, and portfolio department. He's been working in the field in Sri Lanka and Nepal together with the ADB projects. So, Mr. Taisuke, floor is yours.
Thank you, Ioanni. Huba Paiba. This is Taisuke. I'm now located in Kathmandu, Nepal. And let me briefly talk about ADB procurement. It would be general one, not focused on education sector, but in fact, I'm involved in the several projects, education projects in Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Bhutan. Yes, my presentation will focus on 3 topics: business opportunities, ADB procurement framework, and how to find the information. Next slide, please. First, I just want to generally describe what would be the ADB's business opportunities. Yes, please. Next one, please. Yes, ADB is founded in 1966, headquarters in Philippines, Manila. We do have 68 member countries, 49 regional, 19 non-regional, 41 borrowing countries. We support its clients through with private sector, NGOs, CBOs, foundations, academia, etc. We do provide loans, grant, TA, equity, and guarantees. And the largest borrowers are India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Indonesia. This presentation will focus on our sovereign projects only, and we do have a private sector wing. They do provide financing for private sectors. Next, please. Activities in recent years, as you can see, we do have a lot of COVID-19 response projects in 2 years, including vaccine financing, distributing equipment systems, associated logistic cold chains, etc. But as you can see, South Asia is the largest area we are working. Next, please. We do have a document so-called Strategy 2030, and we do, based on these documents, we do operate with 7 priorities: poverty reduction, gender equality, climate change, cities more livable, promoting rural development, strengthening governance and institutional capacity, fostering regional cooperation. And we do have 3 key approaches. One is the expanding private sector operations. 2, mobilizing financial resources for development. Number 3, strengthening knowledge services. Next, please. Procurement volume in last year. This procurement means the contracts we approved. It is more than $10 billion US, including goods, works, consulting services, and other related services. Next, please. Procurement by sector last year. As you can see, the infrastructure is one of the main parts of our operations, but education has a certain percentage. But this education includes not only the consulting services, but school construction and goods to be purchased by Tibet schools, for example. These are all categorized as in the education sector. Next, please. We do recommend potential suppliers, bidders to look at the ADB funding projects because it would be the good gateway to new opportunities in fast-growing Asia. ADB's operations are also rapidly growing. The good thing is that the finance assured. If it's a government financing, sometimes the payment are delayed, sometimes unsecured, but in ADB's financing, of course, our finance is guaranteed with some conditions, but it is assured. And we do oversight the procurement process, or the procurement procedures are internationally accepted manner. Next, please. This is so-called ADB project cycle, and we do first establish so-called country partnership strategy documents and the regional cooperation strategy documents. It for all the borrowers for 5 years. This is normally 5 years program. Then based on this, we develop country operation business plan, COBP, that identifies the pipeline projects for next 3 years. Then based on these documents, we do identify concepts of the projects. Then if the concepts are approved, we move on to the preparation, approval of financing documents, then procurement being done. Then after this, the projects are implemented, evaluation team will review how the projects are being done. So then in this circle, we do ask a lot of help or engagement from the private sectors, individual consultants, firm consultants, of course, contractors, construction companies, suppliers. Next, please. So type of business opportunities as supply of goods, machinery, equipment, ICT, furniture, civil works, consulting services, and for routine or physical works, we classify this as a non-consulting services such as surveys, training, translation, etc. Next, please. Just I want to make it clear that in the loan and grant, the borrower, the receiving countries, what we call it executing agency, EA, is responsible for procurement of goods, works, and services. Except the TA, ADB, under the TA, ADB, but except TA, borrower will select and recruit consultants. Then ADB reviews the procurement activities of EAs to ensure that the proceeds of its financing are used in accordance with the bank's rules. Next, please. So how ADB procurement are being conducted? It's under the ADB procurement framework. Next, please. We used to use so-called procurement guidelines and the guidelines on the use of consultants, but 5 years ago, the new policy and regulations are introduced, and now all the projects use this new policy and regulations. This try to accommodate more diversified demands from DMCs. Next, please. The core procurement values, fairness, economy, efficiency, transparency. These were principles even we used, of course, in the old guidelines time, but under the new policy and regulations, quality is more emphasized, and the value for money is one of the principles in our procurement. Next, please. I just need to touch upon this agreement establishing the ADB, or so-called ADB Charter. It mandates us to use the ADB financing only for the procurement in member countries of goods and services produced in member countries. So as I indicated that we do have 68 member countries, and we only use the goods and services produced in these countries, with a few exceptions. Next, please. So as I said, sorry, keep going. only bidders from nationals of ADB member countries are eligible, and with some detailed exceptions are there. But in normal projects, we do have so-called membership eligibilities. Exceptions, the example of the exceptions is, for example, the vaccine financing in COVID-19 pandemic. The board of directors waived these restrictions, so the borrowing country can procure the vaccine produced from non-ADB member countries. Next, please. Other eligibility requirements, we only have these eligibility requirements, and other than this, we don't accept any other eligibility requirements, so that all the potential suppliers, bidders, consultants are equally compete the opportunities. Conflict of interest, that can maybe understandable. And we do have so-called ADB anti-corruption sanctions list. I will touch upon this the next slide. UN Security Council's decisions, and some government-owned enterprise may have some restrictions to compete in the bidding opportunities. Next, please. We do have so-called ADB's anti-corruption policy and guidelines, which applies all of ADB financing. We have the Office of Anti-Corruption and Integrity. We call it OAI. Then, if we found any irregularity, we see any irregularity in the borrower's bidding process, we need to report the case to this OAI, and they will start investigation, and they may sanction the bidders or even ADB staff if they found something not in line with this policy and guidelines. Next, please. Okay, little bit more about works, goods, and non-consulting services. Next, please. These are the main procurement methods. The open competitive bidding is the default method. And for some cases, we use limited competitive bidding. Smaller contracts, we use request for quotation. In exceptional case, we use direct contracting. There are also possibility of electronic reverse auction framework agreements. But the main methods we use is the OCB. We call it OCB, open competitive bidding. Next, please. Oh, sorry, keep going. This is procurement process, sorry, not schedule, procurement process of open competitive bidding, 1 stage 2 envelope without pre-qualification. First, the borrower submit draft bidding documents to ADB, and we will review and make comments if necessary, and say if the comments are reflected, we say, okay, please go ahead. Then also the borrower submits the draft invitation for bids. Invitation for bids is published on ADB website. Then bid starts. Public opening of technical bid. Then technical bid evaluation report is prepared and submitted to ADB. We do review the technical bid evaluation report. We may say, okay, please go move on, or we may have some, if we do have some different opinion, we do say the borrower to please reconsider this, etc., etc. Then they do open the financial bid. Again, the bidders, borrowers prepares and submits financial bid evaluation report. We do review. We may say no objection. Then move to contract signing. Then publication of contract award. So this is the one process of 1 stage 2 envelope bid. Our issue we are facing is how to reduce the time taken for this, because sometimes it takes 7 months, 8 months from the advertisement to contract signing. So we try to minimize the time taken. Next, please. So we do see some mistakes in bids, bids not signed or signed by unauthorized signatory, absence of bid security or bid securing declaration. We have to say, sorry, your bids are disqualified. Insufficient amount of bid security, incorrect bid validity period. We try to be flexible, but some borrowers say, no, we don't want to see the any irregularity. So in such a case, we sometimes we do have a difficulty to overturn their decision. Lack of supporting documents, incomplete bids, these can be seen frequently. So we always try to remind potential bidders to be careful to not to be disqualified because of the mistakes. Next, please. Okay, consulting services. Next, please. Okay, consulting services, we do have a firms recruitment, individual consultant recruitment, and as ADB itself recruit consultants for in our staff as our staff consultants. Recruitment can be the national consultant or international consultant. In case of international firms, it must be incorporated in any of ADB member countries, unless any eligibility restriction is waived. An individual from non-ADB member country may work for an eligible international firm. In an individual, it's national if a citizen of DMC's development member countries. So the assignments are for when assignments are for national. In my case, only Nepali citizen may apply such assignment. Next, please. Procurement or recruitment methods for consulting firms. We call it QCBS, QBS, CQS, etc. The default is QCBS. 80% for quality, 20% for cost is the default, but recently we use more for 90-10 ratio, so that we put more emphasis on quality evaluation. QBS, we don't see much, and for smaller contracts, we use CQS, FBS, LCS, and in exceptional case, we do agree to use direct contracting with the borrowers. Next, please. Firm consultant recruitment process, I think it's similar or same with the other institutions or governments. We first request the borrower to prepare detailed TORs, budget, request for proposals, documents, then advertisement, shortlisting, tendering, evaluation, negotiation, and contracting management. Next, please. Normally, we recommend the consulting firms to take the following approach. First, please know your client and their expectations. Find the gaps to fill in. Then understand context and background to the assignment. You may try to leverage experience with similar institutions, similar experiences. Please identify partners who will add value, in particular local partners who may have local knowledge, local culture. Understand the cost of doing business, so or try to be in the good to have a good advantage in price proposals. But you don't have to limit the team members in your inside consultants only, in-house consultants only. So you may try to find external specialists if that will strengthen your teams. Next, please. Just 1 point to try to maintain our procurement process more transparent, more accountable. We do have two measures. One is the debriefing. If you are not selected for the signing of the contract, you may request so-called debriefing from the government or even to ADB, and you may write it in writing if you are not satisfied the explanation given. Also, you may always send complaints directly to ADB or to the government. We do have a system, so anyone can send any complaints if you find anything irregular in the process. So these two measures will maintain our procurement process as transparent as possible. Okay, please. And the last topic is how to find the information. As I said, we do have a so-called country partnership strategies, COBP. These are all on our website, procurement plans. We do have general and specific procurement notices, open opportunities. We call them as operational procurement. So all the information are on ADB website. We also have institutional procurement notices. This is for ADB, for example, vehicle procurement for ADB. Some furnitures for ADB building. These are procurement, but this is for institutional. Next. Okay, this is the ADB website, and if you click the mouse for several times, you may find where we work, and you may find a country partnership strategy and COBP. Next, please. COBP looks like this. So this lists all the potential projects in the pipelines. It may be revised from time to time, but you may see what sectors, what areas the new projects are being prepared or being proposed. Next, please. Goods and works procurement plans for each projects are on website. So you may try to find, for example, education projects in which countries, which areas. You can see the so-called procurement plans. Next, please. Procurement plans list all the potential contract packages, which is the below part of this slides, the amount and the procurement method, the planned time schedule, etc. We distributing this information. Then based on this procurement plans, next please. We call it specific procurement notice. Each contracts, once the documents are ready, we do advertise this on our website. Of course, the borrowing countries, they need to advertise this in their own website, their newspaper, etc. Next, please. For consultants, please visit first so-called consultant management system in ADB. Next, please. Then first step for consultants is to register in our system. We do have our own CV format. Then please put your new information in the system. It's of course free of charge. Then please identify your experience, qualification, strengths, etc. This will be the kind of basis of the selection. Next, please. Consulting opportunities are also advertised through so-called consultant services recruitment notice in our website. Next, please. Okay, this is the last slide. You may register for alerts. So, or if you have really interest in ADB works, you can register what kind of information you want to receive from ADB. So once we revise or add next information, you may get alert on in your registered email. Next, please. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions if participants have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taisuke. Most interesting and practical issues raised here. We have two questions, but I would like to first invite the last speaker pair on the floor so that at least those two questions are addressed to you, Taisuke, so you have some time to prepare for those. But now I would like to invite this is Riikka Hälikkä and Ari Koski. Riikka from the University of Helsinki, HY+, and Ari Koski from the Turku University. Since our last event, I've been quite happy to find out that at least 4 companies from Education Finland have succeeded in bidding successfully to ADB projects. And at this time, we've asked from the experts to share some of the good practices, what they would like to share with the other ones, so that we would have additional 4 to 8 new members applying to ADB projects successfully. So Riikka, let's hear from your perspective, and then Ari.
Thank you so much, and we are very happy to be here today. And well, we are the last speakers, and maybe we will concentrate on very, very practical issues. And still, the aim of our presentation is absolutely to encourage our colleagues in Finland, especially private sector operators, to participate in ADB bidding processes. And I'm also very happy that we get a chance to present after Mr. Taisuke, because we were in contact also when we were preparing the contract which we are talking about today. And my name is Riikka, like I said, sorry. And I work as the lead expert, especially focusing on large-scale development projects at University of Helsinki HY+, which is a company fully owned by the university. And my colleague Ari, please introduce yourself quickly, and we will move on.
Yes. Hello, everyone. So my name is Ari Koski. I work as a key account manager at the University of Turku, and I'm responsible for our global educational services and international partners. But so my pleasure to be here, share some lessons, although the time is really limited. But so move on.
Let's move on. Yes. Today we present mostly based on our ADB experience, which is quite fresh still. So in 2021, we were contracted to carry out technical assistance in Sri Lanka, and we support the secondary education improvement program, especially. Our expertise concentrates on curriculum development of STEM and commerce subjects, pedagogy, educational leadership, assessment, and university entrance. And HY Plus is leading the consortium, but University of Turku from Finland, then 2 partners from Korea Institute for Curriculum and Evaluation, KAIS, and then Korea Educational Development Institute, KEDI, are our partners. So it's a truly international consortium, and of course we also have a very good national team working in the technical assistance delivery. Please, next.
So one of the first thing to do when we start the project from the operational point of view is what we have heard today already, that there are different kind of ADP projects. So the first thing to do is to discuss and make sure to all parties from the Finland or international partners, the country partner and ADP, that what kind of role do we have in the project. So now we speak about technical assistant, and there the role for us is mainly to guide, support, maybe consult into the processes in Sri Lanka and in this reform. Not so much teach and educate. Although and this is maybe the main message internally at the university. So our teachers and experts are so used to teach and educate and of course research, so that it might take a bit time to move on to this kind of consultant role. But they are capable of doing that. But it's really important to discuss at the beginning what are the expectations for our role and what kind of support and what kind of actions do we offer.
And maybe also to add to that, we also have noticed that we really must also develop some of our internal processes. We must have a good support services available and so on. So it has been a learning experience so far, also organizational learning especially. And this is maybe a little bit similar note. So we have noticed also that when implementing the ADP TA contracts, our companies or institutions must have a really robust project management structure or system in place. But we also must have the, let's say, capability and good capacity in managing change. So there are always, for instance, in the case of Sri Lanka, after or as soon as the country was out of the pandemic, then came the financial crisis, and you almost always must be ready to be flexible and adjust the technical assistance delivery if there is a need to change something. So change management, project management, those are maybe the most important issues, because if the I mean the experts must have the opportunity to really do their job, and this is then our job, mine and Ari's, and also the job of our national program managers to ensure that we can use the expertise in the best possible way. Next one, please.
So, well, to be honest, it's of course business, and there are, well, 2 points here what we maybe want to discuss or share. The first one of course is that there's always a competition. That's clear. And again, maybe from the university point of view, we have to admit that our prices or budgets are quite high, but usually from the different bidding processes, we get really high scores from the content and content and from the technical proposals. So I don't know, is it the message to someone? But anyway, of course, we want to promote the quality and say that quality matters. But of course, price is important as well. The other point here is again more for internal learning and project management, is that quite often when our expert jumps to new project and they get really enthusiastic, so they may forget the time limits and the budgets and so on. So there is the role for project management to bit coordinate and also squeeze the time they use for the project, because we need to stick in the budget and the project plan. And of course, it's also the discussion between the partners. So there are quite often so many expectations and ad hoc issues there where they want us to involve. So how to coordinate that is the question.
And we always say that stick to the terms of reference, but it's not always easy, as Ari said, because like I said, everybody involved is always so innovative, and the teams are coming up with new ideas which they want to implement, and maybe sometimes we are the ones trying to a little bit restrict their innovativeness, which is in a way it's not nice to do so, but once again, let's stick to the terms of reference. Next one, please. In addition to the business side, we have found that working with the ADB and working as TA assistants, it has been really rewarding, although this project, for instance, has been going on since 2021. And we, as organizations, we really see additional surplus value in the way that we are able to develop partnerships for not only for mutual learning, but also for future opportunities. So this is maybe something that we also want to stress. So it's not only about the business, but it's also about partnerships. Next one, please.
And yes, this is the last one, and time is running. So just to summarize and conclude. So often we get quite good feedback and thanks for the expertise that we have. So from the university point of view, our experts have really long-term research and evidence-based expertise to the field, and that gives them an ability to apply the solutions to the local context. And this is the main message, and what we want also to share everyone, that we always need to localize. That's obvious, but always we cannot just bring some Finnish solution or Finnish system and try to bring it to the new country. That doesn't work. We know that. And so our experts can do the localization. They also have courage to think outside the box, although the maybe local culture wouldn't allow, but they are strong enough. So and then usually when we speak about Finnish people, so when we promise something, we usually deliver. So that's something we want to stick on. And then, as already told, maybe the flexibility and ability to react to ad hoc issues and sudden requests it's not so good as some other companies might have, but because our teachers and experts have so much, let's say, normal duties in teaching and research, but we try to be agile at this point as well. So thanks a lot from my side, and Riikka, if you want to summarize, or last word for you.
Thank you. Maybe worth pointing out that when we did the tendering or when we started the bidding process for this, everything was done virtually, and we were so happy because we are newcomers to the ADB projects, and we were so happy that we could do everything virtually in a very smooth manner. So that's maybe also something, an additional point to encourage everybody to work with ADB. So we are very happy that we had this opportunity to be here today, and maybe we have exhausted the time now. So thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Riikka and Ari, for these practical tips and perspectives from the Finnish side. Now it's time to move for the questions and answers, and as I already promised, there are already 2 questions that we will deal in the beginning, and should you have any more questions or comment in mind, please do not hesitate to wave your hand or just write them on the chat box. But first question is, I believe, for Mr. Miao. Antti is asking what type of criteria you have for the consulting firms or consultants, what you use. Is there a very strict restrictions in terms of size, history of working with ADB, or financials behind the company or the consultant? So if you could first react or reply on that criteria question.
Okay, thank you. I thought it's about supplier, contractors, etc. But for consulting firms, we don't see financials. We don't see the size. We focus on the experience. You know, relevant experience, similar experience, experience in the similar region. If you know the weather or something are very much related, and experience in that country may be also counted, and the experience with EB and other multilateral banks projects, this will be counted. But for consulting section, we don't see financials. I hope that the or almost bankrupt consulting firms may not mean for the competition. And the size, we don't care much. Thank you.
Thank you. And also the second question is for you. If you could give some advice to individual consultant on increasing the success rate of winning a bid. So that would be highly appreciated. What would be the winning formula if there is one?
Thank you. It's also a good question. To be honest, you know, when we let's say in ADBTA consulting, if we do one advertisement, we will get 30, 40, 50 application. So we obviously we don't have a time to look each CV in details. So we do try to make shortlisting. Then after we do see the details. So then for the shortlisting, we again similar experience, experience which matches the TOR. That will be we will give, you know, so-called high score, and After the shortlisting, again, we got the detailed review. But this is the kind of official response. But I would also say you may do your own marketing. You may approach ADB staff. How can I say? In a not a strange way. I mean, you may do kind of business promotion. You may send the your outputs you have done for some other projects to the concerned ADB specialist, or you can just make a become the good friends of ADB staff. So that will help us to in the selection process. Oh, I know this guy, and this he or she was have done the brilliant job in the World Bank projects. I've heard that story from the World Bank colleague. Also, this time let's select him or her. Now, that also happens in the real life. So you may try to market yourself and become not necessarily friends, acquaintance. That would also help. Thank you.
Thank you. Make yourself visible, do the homework, and make a good work. Then I will give the floor to Marja Laine from the Finnish Consulting Group. Marja, please.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marja Laine. I'm from FCG, Finnish Consulting Group. Thank you so much for the interesting presentations. I would like to come back to the interesting words of Jeff Taylor in the beginning of the seminar. We heard that Finland punches above its weight in ADB. I'm very happy to hear this, and also happy to share that this is partly because of FCG, as we have implemented about 200 ADB projects since 1973. And based on the recent data, FCG is number 1 service deliverer to ADB in Finland. Our New Zealand company is also on place 1, and our Singapore, FCG Singapore, is on number 2. But to my question, as FCG works in multiple sectors, we've noted that there is a great level of price variation between the different sector expertise that ADB procures. According to our expertise, unfortunately, the education sector expertise seems to have lower prices than the other sectors. And also within the education sector, the ADB budgets vary greatly, so that as a result, in several cases, we've had to conclude that we're not able to prepare a Finnish bid within the given budget. So our question is about the quality and price, which also Ari Koski touched upon in his presentation. How does the ADB budget the opportunities? And what is the reason behind the expert price level differences between the different sectors and also within the education sector opportunities? And if the budget is low, should we then interpret this to mean that these opportunities are meant more for the Asian rather than European companies and experts? Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I believe Mr. Taylor is still online, and it was addressed to you. So if you would like to respond. Or if Mr. Taylor is no longer online, would somebody from the bank side respond on?
I think that Jeff, yeah. Yeah, I think Jeff is has to leave for other engagement. Do you want to answer this?
Okay. Stephanie.
Okay, so maybe we'll come back on that. Just to clarify, yeah, maybe we'll come back on this question. Or do you mind to use the chat on this question, and we'll come back to you with more detail, because it's also a question in between the education sector and the global budget allocated to project, if I understand well. So we'll come back to you on that. Thank you.
Okay, let's do so. And then I have one more question from Mr. Abdel Rahman de Groot, if you would like to take the floor now.
Hi, my name is Ab. I work at TESPAC, and we provide energy solutions to organizations like the United Nations and a multitude of different NGOs like Save the Children or World Vision. I had a question for Mishiko Shuga. In regards of the hackathons, what if you already have like energy like general solutions that are being used? And is there another way for us to find a point of collaboration on this point, for example, since we already have the solution?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. The hackathons are organized from the IT department in ADB. And when they are being advertised, there's already a theme, a specific theme around the hackathons, to which you would then respond with your solutions, and not the other way around. I could guide you to the page that periodically advertises for the hackathon. And you might be able to identify whether the technical solution that you have might respond to the question being posed for the hackathon.
That would be lovely, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we are getting close to the end of this event. First up, I would like to express my big thanks to all the speakers and ambassadors Sal and Büke, as well as ADB staff, Mr. Taylor, Mrs. Suga, Mr. Pant, and Mr. Miao. We know that the challenges ahead of us are huge. We are just recovering from the COVID pandemic. We know that there are wars not only in Ukraine, which is in Europe, but also elsewhere. That also raises the bar for big economic stress in many areas and raises the question of well-being and economic recovery. We know that ADB is working in almost all fields of societal development, not only in education, but also in other fields of restructuring, improving the lives of those who deserve it most, and make the world a better place and hopefully peaceful place, and tackling all the big issues in the future. Not least the climate change that is already among us, but also looming in the horizon. In Finland, we believe that having a good quality education for all is one of the big keys to tackle the future challenges and improving the lives of all people. Today, we've had a very good advice on very practical advice on how to join our forces and how to link to ADB's work in so many countries, what was already mentioned. And we also know that from the Finnish side, also this education expertise is sought, because we have lots of state-of-the-art activities in the field of education in Finland, and we believe that that expertise should be made as widely available as possible for other corners of the world, because it's very flexible. It serves all the sectors in education, all the way until lifelong learning. So with these valuable insights and practical advice, I wish once more to thank all the audience for active participation. And last but not least, it was also asked whether we will share the presentations for the participants, and it was already answered that yes, the presentations will be made available at the ADB's website. So thank you for the ADB, thank you for the Ministry for Foreign Affairs of Finland for making this possible, and all the active participating from the Education Finland members, as well as others who joined this important event. So with this closing word, thank you and have a good afternoon and good dinner, lunch for those living in Finland. Thank you very much.